Okay, so we're just, a million-ish. What do you wish someone would have told you at that point?
Probably in the case with L-Space, we probably could have moved a little faster. We were actually a little too careful. And we also did things like trying to get an understanding of what were the things that were limiting growth at that particular time. Like, first thing we found out is we made one swimsuit bottom. It was called the Itsy Bitsy. And it was an Itsy Bitsy. So we started calling, because Paul and I had been in the business for a long time. We had people that we knew all across the country that owned retail stores. And we said, well, how can we do more business with you guys? Well, we love your brand. It's a little too sexy for us, or a little too, it's not quite right for us. So the first thing we did is we added 2 other bottom sizes. So we had a medium bottom and a little bit more in each, and then a little bit more than that. So there were now 3 coverage. It went from Itsy Bitsy to not so Itsy Bitsy. And that really worked. All of a sudden, it lit up the brand, because we were still doing swimwear. We hadn't really expanded beyond anything else, but now we're starting to sell stores in areas that were like the Bible Belt, or places like that, where they wouldn't really wear our stuff. Like when you go to the beaches here in California, you wonder if the stuff's made with dental floss.
So I'm hearing market research, pick up the phone, talk to your retailers, ask them, be engaged.
Exactly, and try to understand your brand. A lot of people think they understand their brand, but they don't do the research. And that calling around, talking to retailers, and we made this decision within 6 weeks after we bought the brand, or bought into the brand, that we needed to start adding coverages, and that made a huge difference. We immediately launched those additional bottoms, and suddenly we went from $1.5 million to maybe $3 million. So we almost doubled sales in about 18 months, just by that one change.
So if you're talking to a brand now, put yourself in the $5 million type brand. What is the most important thing to focus on, and what advice do you wish you were given at that point in time?
You really have to have an honest assessment of who you are. What is your brand mission? How do you define the brand? How do you define your competition? How do you define your customer? And really have a deep understanding of who you are. And then the next thing you do is you create a unique selling proposition. So if this is who I am, and I want to grow, I've got to understand why I'm different. What are my competitive differentials? What's my secret sauce? And then how do I take that secret sauce and spread it onto new categories? And then you kind of roll forward. But a lot of people, they go off half-cocked. It's sort of ready, fire, aim. And they find themselves in a quagmire because they didn't think it through on all the points of execution. And a lot of people think they're better than they are. I used to have some ego, but I'm at a point right now where I went to the bank and I tried to put some open an ego account. There wasn't one. So so that was a waste of time. So it's really thinking about things in reality, and thinking about how you're going to go from A to B, and think about it realistically. Because a lot of people, they look at their strong points, but they don't look at their weak points. And any planning should have strengths, opportunities, weakness, and threats. You should be thinking about those 4 quadrants and fill them out, and then look at your strategy and overstamp that on the strategy to say, okay, I can't do this because it's not only is a weakness, but it's a threat. Or if it's a weakness and a threat, how do I make them a strength? How do I move them around? How do they move those little pieces around the chessboard? But it's really understanding who you are and creating a very strong point of difference and unique selling proposition to build your brand. And that's if you're 1 million, 2 million, or 10 million. You really have to have a good understanding of who you are.
So let's say now you are a more established brand, you have a sales force of 20 or so reps, you're established, you're, 50 million. What is the most important thing at that point in time? And if you could look back, what do you wish someone would have told you?
Inventory is the biggest asset, and it's also your biggest liability. In my business, if I'm over inventoried in swimwear, swimwear does not have a long shelf life. It's not like fine wine. Swimwear is kind of like lettuce in a hot warehouse. It doesn't have a big shelf life. So you've got to turn that inventory. You've got to force that turn. And a lot of people fall in love with their inventory and they think they can sell it next season, or they give themselves a lot of excuses not to take the hit on it, and they end up getting in deeper trouble. And some really big brands in the action sports business got into some serious trouble because they did not manage their inventory. Inventory is a huge thing to manage. It's where your cash is tied up. And if you've got inventory that's non-productive, you've got to go borrow more money to buy new inventory that's going to be productive. So sometimes you just have to take the hit, and you got to move it out and get rid of it and move on to the next thing.
So it sounds like small, but especially as you grow, just keeping an eye on the inventory, the turns, the buys, and all of that is the most important.
It's super important. I mean, well, obviously you got to have great product and you have great marketing, but you can have great product and great marketing and still have too much inventory.
Yeah.
But inventory is your biggest liability and something people need to keep a sharp eye on.